What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Monday. And today is the day we're going to get back to draft evaluation. So anyone who's waiting for those videos, they're going to come a little bit later today. But before we get to those videos, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about some information that we have gained access to over the last, I would say, about week. I know that to the people who really pay attention to this stuff, this is kind of old news, and some people might argue that it's not even really news because right now it's all just educated guesses and speculation with a little bit of a lean towards you it's not just being pulled out of a hat out of nowhere, don't get me wrong, but we don't have anything official yet. However, this is going to be one of those times where we won't necessarily get anything official. It's just either going to happen or not happen. And in this case, I kind of feel like we're not going to get that moment where we just know for 100% sure that this is not going to happen until we're actually in August or maybe even a little bit before that, maybe like June or July. But until we actually get to that point and it hasn't happened yet, that's the moment when we'll realize that it's not happening. I'm talking about DeMarcus Lawrence here. So obviously, one thing the Seahawks did not do over the last couple of days here, really week plus now, because we're now about a week into free agency, is address the edge rusher position. They didn't sign anybody as of me recording this video, and I'm not really sure who they were kicking the tires on either. It's hard to be sure about that, but that is one position the Seahawks did not address. Now, I understand why they're not addressing it, and I don't think it's a bad thing for them to not be addressing it, but the fact remains that they haven't addressed it yet. So the DeMarcus Lawrence thing looms large, and we've gotten two things over the last week or so. So the first thing, this is kind of old now, and I want to be clear here, this is just one man's opinion. Jonathan Hankins. If you don't remember Jonathan Hankins, I don't blame you. He was a Seahawk. He was on the team last year, but he never played. He never got healthy. He did play a decent amount the previous year, so you might remember him from 2024. But yeah, Hankins' failure to launch in 2025 didn't work out for him, and he is now retiring. But when he gave the announcement of his retirement, he was on some kind of a show or podcast or something like that. And one thing that he said, which is a lot more impactful than whether or not Jonathan Hankins is retiring, is he does not think that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to retire. And he's kind of an insider. And I don't mean he's an insider in the sense that he's like a reporter or anything like that, but that's a guy who's in the locker room. That's a guy who knows DeMarcus Lawrence. I think they played with each other in Dallas before playing with each other. Well, they never actually played with each other in Seattle because Hankins never got on the field while Lawrence was on the team. But I believe they played together in Dallas. They probably know each other fairly well, and there was probably some kind of a relationship there for Hankins to be able to say something like this. And what he said was he did not get the sense that DeMarcus Lawrence was going to retire. So that was number one. Number two, we got this from Dan Viens, who is actually a reporter and somebody who knows people and has sources and is willing to pass along information. I've been on a show before, by the way, but according to him, he's got a source with knowledge of the situation that has told him that DeMarcus Lawrence is not planning to retire and will be with the Seahawks in 2026. So, look, is it definite? Absolutely not. Is this guaranteed to work out the way the Seahawks want it to? Of course not. But we're getting good signs here. And the reality is, like I said, I don't think this is leading up to a moment where DeMarcus Lawrence calls a press conference and announces to the world, I'm back for 2026. It's just going to happen. The only thing he might announce officially is if he does decide to retire. So sitting around waiting for DeMarcus Lawrence to come out and just say, I'm back for 2026, don't worry about it. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe it does, but more than likely he just takes the off season and then comes back for camp and he's here and he's part of the team and we're going. So sounds pretty good to me. Pretty happy about that. I don't think enough can be said about how important it is that we get DeMarcus Lawrence back for 2026, and we also need him to at least be good because especially with the first week of free agency in the rearview mirror, we are definitely in a situation where without DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't know if we can make ends meet at that edge position. We're going to have a hard time doing it with him potentially. It really depends on what happens the rest of the offseason. But understand that DeMarcus Lawrence was our best edge rusher last year. He was consistently getting pressure. He actually got a fair few sacks, and he was one of the guys who was actually still producing in the postseason. And you can't say that about a lot of the other edges we have here. So if we lost DeMarcus Lawrence this offseason on top of losing Boye Mafe, as much as Boye Mafe wasn't great last year, it would have been really tough to come back from that. And remember, the edge room last year was not exactly great, especially at the end of the year. It was tough at the end of the season. They looked good in New England against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but that may have had more to do with the Patriots than the actual edge rushers on the Seahawks. So with DeMarcus Lawrence back, we have a chance. And I wouldn't go too much further than that. I want to be clear because we don't know where this goes from here. But I've talked about this before, and it bears repeating. When it comes to the edge rusher position in the NFL, it's dicey when you get to a certain point of the offseason and you haven't done anything. The draft is a month and a half away, and there are Seahawks fans out there who say that we'll address our edge needs in the draft, and that is a dangerous game to play because generally speaking, with the exception of the super top guys, who, by the way, the Seahawks are never going to be able to draft at the 32nd overall pick, you don't really get that much out of an edge rusher as a rookie. A lot of the time, they're like Derek Hall. A lot of the time, they're like Boye Mafe. Remember what those guys did as rookies. Derek Hall did basically nothing. Boye Mafe was passable. But for the most part, that's about what it is. You're not getting an edge rusher to go out there and just go get 8 to 10 sacks on a routine basis as a rookie. It happens every now and then. Like, I think Max Crosby had 10 sacks as a rookie, and he was a 4th-round pick, but for the most part, those guys you get that are beyond like the top 10 or top 15 of the draft, they need that first year to learn. They're not going to be able to produce that much in that first year. So saying that we're just going to get a rookie and he's going to plug right in and produce, I don't know how realistic that is. And there are still edge rushers left in free agency who I think can make an impact. I think we're playing the comp game, waiting until after the draft, and then we're going to sign some guys. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, guys like Cam Jordan, guys like Von Miller. There's going to be guys out there, and I think we're just being patient, and I think that's fine, but it's delicate. What if those guys suddenly sign? What if those guys don't want to come here? It's possible. So, realistically, if we lost DeMarcus Lawrence, you're in a really tough spot. As much as he is an older player and as much as I do expect him to not be as good this year as he was last year, I don't know if this team could have put it together the way they need to if they lose D-Law. So this is great news. In some ways, it almost feels like signing a free agent. You could look at it that way if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to go and get on out of here. Draft stuff coming up soon. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good rest of your day.